Hello, everyone. It's Kathleen at Kathleen Elise, and welcome to another edition, another live stream of just for students only. And today we are going to be talking about how you can improve your English by your speaking, how you can improve your speaking when you're trying to do it alone. So before we do any of that, please don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss out on anything, and you can watch the replays of all the other episodes and all the other content I put out there. I'm really trying to give you top value. I know I tend to, I have so much to say about everything. So I do try to keep it at a good time span for you so you can consume it and not have to take all your time, while you're eating lunch or what have you. But I don't want you to miss out on anything. So like, subscribe, and don't forget to do the notifications and share this with anyone that you feel can benefit from it. And, spread the word and bring people on. The reason that we come every week, or that I come every week, is to give you a place to go to ask a question of a real live person who is a native English speaker and can really get your questions answered and walk you through to a solution before you leave. So at least once a week, you're going to know that there's a place that you can come to get some help. All right. So, all right. So today's topic is I don't like to get the titles wrong. I don't know why. But today's topic is how to improve speaking skills by yourself. So hence the glasses, because I had to read it. So we're going to talk about um, three main areas or three main things that you're going to have to deal with that when you are practicing your speaking skills. And I have a bonus tip for you. So this is my number one tip. So the first thing that you need to do is you really need to consider how you learn best. What are the things? So think back to when you were in school and you were learning any kind of a subject. If you were taught English in school, think about those experiences. And when did you feel the most comfortable? When did you feel smartest? When did you feel as though things just sort of fell into place for you and you could really understand what was going on? When did you have the most success? So what was the teacher doing, and how did the teacher present it? What were some of the exercises that you had to do where you really felt as though you excelled in it? And so write those down and store that for a second. And then what you want to do is you want to look at the times when you're learning, again, any subject, but if you've had language learning experience, which really everybody has, because we have to learn our own language and we all learn our own languages in school. Think about what didn't work because that's important too. You don't want to, so many students and teachers as well, because we think that the way we were taught is the only way. And if we're kind of feeling it's not, we don't know where to go, how to step out of that box. So as a student, we just kind of think that this is the only way to learn. It's not. The the There are as many ways to learn as there are people in the world, and each person learns in many different ways. It's not a simple, well, you're visual, you're audio, oral, or all these other things, kinesthetic. We learn in many different ways. Some people do just have the one way that works for them. Other people use all the different ways, and they need to piece them together. I'm definitely one of those people. I need to hear it as I'm seeing it. And if it's another language, then I need to hear it and see how it's done on the page. So, in order for me to understand the word. So again, many of my students, the majority of them are Spanish speakers, and I know some Spanish. I did take Spanish in when I was 11 and 12 and 13. Um, so the way I need to understand the word is they can say it to me, but if I don't understand it right away, I say, "Can you please spell that for me?" Now that works for me with languages like Spanish and German and French because the alphabets are the same. It's beginning to work for me now when I'm learning Korean because I'm much more familiar with the alphabet now. I'm more familiar with how to when I look at that the alphabet and I see a word spelled, I now know how they're constructed, how to read it. So now I can listen to it and I can mimic it, but I also want to see it written out so that I can recognize the words now. Um, but everybody learns differently. And for languages, that's how I need to work. I need to hear it. I need to see it. I need to work with the words. I need to physically write them on the page in order for it to sink into my brain. I need to um, create charts. And sometimes I haven't had the time to finish it, but I have a chart with sticky notes where I break down the different um, uh, parts of a sentence and I write the words and the endings and put the sticky notes up in the right places. It's what we do with early learners, with young learners and children in kindergarten and first grade, getting them how to read, manipulating the sources. I need to do that. When it comes to a language, if it comes to legal things or analytical things, don't bother me. Just let me read it for myself. I will write down my questions. I will write my summaries, things like that. Um, but don't influence me before I've read it, before I've had a chance to work on it, and then check my understanding. Because when somebody else's influence comes in, then I doubt myself. I don't learn it because I feel as though I haven't worked on it. Someone else gave it to me, and that throws me off. So again, we learn in different ways. So figure this out. Write down what has worked for you in the past. Write down what has frustrated you in the past. Write down all the types of ways that you learn for different types of things because there are different parts or components that make up your speaking, and you might learn in a different manner for each of the components. So it's important to figure out how you learn best. Okay. um, that's the first thing you need to go to do. And while you're doing that, you need to figure out, what's my goal? Where do I, first of all, you've got your long-term goal. You want to be fluent in English. That's awesome. um, but you need milestone goals to get you there, sort of the signposts along the way to mark the trail to get there. So, what are those signposts, mile markers that you need to see for yourself in order to show that you've made progress here and that you're on the way to reaching your goal. And then by knowing what those mile markers are, I'm sorry, I'm playing with my light as I'm talking to you. Silly. Do any of you do that? Do you just you're right in the middle of something and something catches your eye? I apologize. Sorry. Um figure out what those mile markers are, and then let's look at the closest one. So in 6 months, or however long you're planning on doing this, practicing by yourself and building your skills by yourself, where do you expect yourself to be? Where do you need to be? Maybe you're trying to do this because you're trying to apply for a job, or you're applying for a university or something. Where do you need to be, and how much, in what time frame? So how much time do you have to get there? And then now we're going to add the next thing you need to look at is, how much time are you able to commit? So there's, how much time are you able to commit, and how much time are you willing to commit? Because right now you might be able to commit, 15 minutes a day. But are those 15 minutes a day going to get you to where you need to be in the time frame that you have? Okay. And if it's not going to be enough, then how are you going to commit to getting that extra time and fitting that extra time in? So there's so many things that we just don't think about. And you're probably listening to this thinking, it's not even important, Kathleen. I just want to get it done, or, I'll learn it. It's plenty of time. But when you hear what you have to do and why you have to do this, you're going to think, oh, you might change your mind on that. So let's get into the next part of it. So now what you have to think about. So first you have to think about yourself as a student, the way you learn, and what's going to work for you. And then you have to figure out, okay, what do I need to accomplish? How much time do I have to accomplish that? And is what my current allotment of time, that I can fit in, or that I think is all I can fit in, is that going to get me there? And if not, what am I going to do about it? How can I commit to all the time I need to get there? So how much time do I need to make it to my goal, and how can I make that work? Um, and again, I find that, as students, if you're here and you're watching this video and you've done all the work that you've done thus far to learn English, whether you're just starting out, you still had to do a lot of work to get here. Or whether you've been doing this for a long time and you haven't seen any progress and you're looking to finally push beyond that plateau, if you're here, you're a committed English learner. So it's not a matter of you don't have the willpower to do it, or you don't have the motivation to do it. So as my mother always used to say, and actually many of my teachers did too, Kathleen, if it's important enough to you, you'll make it happen. So if this goal is important to you and you need to make adjustments, you'll figure it out. You'll figure it out. No pressure. It's not a failure thing that, you haven't failed because you haven't found the extra time yet. You didn't know you needed it. Now you know. Now you figure it out. So that's your first step. And now what you need to consider is, okay, so you figured it all out. You figured how you learn, and you figured out the types of things you're going to do, in order to practice and those exercises. So what you need to look at, the first thing I want you to do and focus on when you're practicing your skills, are your sounds, the sounds of English. And I hope you don't get tired of hearing me say it, but you will hear me say this all the time. People rush through mastering the sounds of English, and they focus on vocabulary, and they focus on spelling, and they focus on grammar, and they stress over all of them. They are important, but remember, when we're learning our own language, the first thing we do is learn the sounds. Babies don't, they're not born speaking words and knowing vocabulary. Babies are born and they have to learn the sounds that they need to make in order to get what they need or what they want, what they're lacking. So we have to learn the sounds. And if your ego is in the way, if it's a source of pride for you that you know so much, or you've had English before, I can pretty much guarantee that you haven't had the intense training that you need on the sounds of English. So many students that I hear about and have worked with myself, and myself being a student of languages as well, um, most of us are told to listen and repeat, listen and repeat, listen and repeat. And we do it all in a class, all together. Some of us have the courage to say it out loud, others just kind of mumble it to ourselves, hoping that the teacher will see our mouths moving and not call on us. But that's not actually helpful, because it the because there's no one listening to us, or watching what we're doing, to see that we can make the sound and transition it well into the next, and that we're not forming bad habits, or habits that, I'm not going to say bad habits, but that we're not forming habits that will make it difficult when we have to say another sound that might require a lot for us to do. So spend the time. I cannot emphasize this enough. Invest your time in the learning the sounds of English. And there are many people out there, many teachers, who may or may not know. I'm assuming they don't know, because they're good teachers, the ones I've seen do it, who are doing it. Um, in order to make non-native speakers feel comfortable and not feel ashamed of their accent, a lot of teachers out there are saying, "Oh, well, that's good enough." But it's not good enough, because good enough isn't good enough, because it's not the sound. And even though English speakers, the different English speaking cultures do this in different ways, that's why they have their own accents. Um, but Americans in particular, we do a lot of condensing of sounds, and shortening of sounds, and combining of sounds, because it makes it easier in the conversation. We speak quickly. There's no getting around that. I am an unusual person when I speak. I can speak quickly, but I'm a thoughtful speaker. So I think about what I'm saying. Sometimes you can tell I kind of get stuck and the words won't come out. But I think about what I'm saying. Words are important to me, so I take my time with it. Um, but so sorry, I lost my track. But so we do condense our sounds and stuff, and so people think that that's what you should learn. Learn the condensed sounds, and learn the English that everybody speaks on the street, as they say. And it's important to know that, so that you can recognize what people are saying. The pitfall here is that people are not learning the correct pronunciation, so that they're not mastering the correct sound, and so it's causing problems in their speech, and it's causing problems when in your ability to be understood. And so again, many of my Spanish students, they're combining their Spanish sounds and their English sounds, and it's changing the word that's being said. I have to ask them, well, did you say chip or did you say ship? Did things like that. Are you saying T or are you saying the? And they get a little frustrated, but once I've explained to them and I show them, this is what I should be here. This is what I think you're saying, but this is what I think you mean to say. Then they're saying, oh, I meant to say that. And so that's helping them to understand how important it is, because again, with the English language, it's such a highly contextual language where no, it's a low contextual language. I always get this wrong. We use, there's two meanings for for context here, which shows you the difficulty. So you can use the context, you can use the information from the situation around you to figure things out, to figure out what a word means, etc., to figure out what's going on and maybe how you should reply. So it's picking up the signals of how people are communicating. But for English, we don't rely on context to tell us what a word means. We have specific words for specific things. Again, I've used the example of cup. A simple thing like a cup doesn't apply to everything, to every drinking vessel. You have a teacup, which is specifically designed for tea. You have your coffee cup, you have a coffee mug, you have a water glass, you have a wine glass. So you have glasses and cups and mugs and, water bottles and all of these things that essentially in other languages, it would be the same word used for all these different things. But in English, we are specific about the words we use. And even though there are synonyms, words that mean relatively the same thing, the differences in those meanings can really change what is being said and the message that is being given. I am working on a video for that, but it's going to be a while because I really want to get great examples to show you the effect. So sounds, this is all this time just to tell you, focus on learning your sounds and get your sounds. There's one, and actually I didn't put this in the description, so I will. I've been using this series of videos with my students because it shows simple but effective cross-section videos of what happens with your tongue and where to place it and what happens with the air and whether you use your voice or not. And the person explaining it is really very good. Lots of examples. Again, this is one thing I tell my students. When he gives the examples, he'll cut off the ends of the words. Like he won't necessarily enunciate that final sound. Like the word pet, it will come out as pet, which you will hear in English conversation naturally, but it's important to know all the sounds of the word, and then you can work with them. It's like an architect or a fashion designer. You can't construct a building or a garment unless you know those fundamental rules, unless you know all of the basic rules that are going to keep it standing. So the sounds of English, knowing the complete sounds, saying the complete sounds initially, that's going to keep your conversation and your fluency standing. You're going to create that solid foundation for everything else to stand on. You can tell this is important. So there we go. So the first thing you want to do is work on your sounds. So I will put the link to that one in the comments. And then the other person that I use a lot is Rachel's English, because she's had a lot of voice training, and so she can explain things on a different level than the Sounds American channel. They're both excellent. So some of it is just style. One might be more academic than the other, and maybe you love academic explanations and maybe you don't need them. So try those out. I will put the links in the description because I use them all the time. So sounds, first thing, spend a long time on that. And then the second thing you want to do, once you get your sounds done, then you want to work on your transitions and transitioning smoothly and fluidly from one sound to the next within the word, and then from one word to the next, and then, to form your sentences. Then, once you have that done, so your sounds first and then the transitions between the sounds, and be comfortable with them. Really make sure that they're smooth. Record yourself doing this. When you're learning a language, you definitely, I think I've shown this before. Sorry, there goes my light. Is I have my journal that I keep for Korean. So I try to write all my sentences. They're absolutely basic, rudimentary sentences, and it's taken me a long time to get them. But I really do try to practice the writing, the physical writing of it, and, that kind of a thing. But, sorry, we were talking about the transitions with the sounds. Oh, that had to do with recording yourself. So as I'm writing it, I'm saying the sentence. So I'm saying the sounds of the letters. I'm saying then the word that I've created, and then word to word I create the sentence. So I'm doing a lot of speaking there. But the other thing is to use your phone and just record yourself. You can do several things. You can either take a book in English that is at a good level for you, and just read it, but record yourself reading it. Create your own audiobook, and then you can play it back in the car on your way to work, or you can pop your headphones in if you're on the train or anything like that. So that way you can hear yourself. So not only are you getting that practice speaking, but you're also able to, by listening to it again and continually, repeatedly listening to it, you're able to get a feeling for how you sound to other speakers. Did you understand what you said? And if not, go back to the sounds, work on your transitions, and go from there. And in here, I didn't add it, but you should always be building your vocabulary. It's important to know your words. You have to know your words, and you have to know the meanings of the words in order to use them correctly in a conversation so you can speak to people. So that is important. So don't skip that. Make sure that's part of your practicing and your learning process. Record yourself reading the meanings and the words and definitions, and then record yourself summarizing, paraphrasing. Okay, this is what the dictionary said the word means, but how do I understand that? Let me say it in my own words. And so just all of these different opportunities. Record yourself on video, speaking. Read the book, but record yourself on video, or anything like that you can do so that you can play it back and watch what's happening and listen to what's happening. So if you're doing a video, watch what your mouth is doing, and maybe you can do a split screen and pick a sound to work on and play that sound and words with that sound. And then, is your mouth doing what the example said to do? Are you hearing that, are you as clear as the speaker, etc., etc.? So many ways that you can work on the sounds, and then that speaking part of it, getting it out, working on your transitions. Then the third thing that you need to consider, and really work on is the tone of your voice and the intonations that happen throughout the conversation, as well as visual clues and things like that. So, because those are important. So because if the tone has to do with the pitch and the volume and all of that stuff, whether you're loud and angry, or whether you're soft and timid, or things like that. But also whether it's a question. Is this a question? Or are you commanding someone? Hey, go sit over there. There's different tones of voice. There's different intonations that you need to be aware of when speaking English. Again, because all of that information communicates so much. And one thing I haven't gotten a handle on yet are the intonations with the Korean language. I don't understand why the raised voice at the end of things, or in English to an American. I'm not sure about to an Australian, a Canadian, or any other English speaking thing country. But to an American, many of the intonations that I'm hearing when I'm watching Korean speakers, they sound like whining. In America, they would be, oh my goodness, stop whining. But it's not whining when you're speaking Korean. And so I haven't gotten a handle on that yet. I will. It's a slow process, but I'm going to get there because it's important to me. So intonations, work on that, and all those vocal clues that are everywhere in English speaking conversations. So work on those. And a great way to do that is, watch movies, I watch all different kinds of media. I watch the news, I watch podcasts, interviews. I watch movies and documentaries and, short things and television shows, and anything I can think of, I will watch it in the language I'm trying to learn. Because and what I'm finding too, because that helps you with all of those clues, the nonverbal clues and the verbal clues as well. So you get familiar, you're getting yourself acclimated to how a natural conversation happens in that language. Um, and one of the things I'm finding is that I'm now able to pick out certain words. I found myself the other day, chincha, oh my goodness, I knew what that meant. And I heard it, and it didn't get all mixed in there somewhere. So I was all excited. Um, so definitely do that. And then the final thing then what you can do, once you get the sounds, once you've got the transitions and you're comfortable with them and they flow, and you're clear in your transitions and you're clear with your sounds, and you've gotten the inflections and the tones and all of those things, then what you can do is I'm sorry, I just totally lost it. Oh, then you work on increasing your speed. Okay, so you can maybe get a transcript of your favorite show. Or there's so many people out there who do either transcripts of shows, movies, lyrics to songs, things like that. And you can practice along with them, or you can watch it and then practice that part of it. So there are so many ways that you can then work on your speed. Reading is an excellent way to do that. Take the paragraph, or take not even a chapter, don't do that. Take it paragraph by paragraph or sentence by sentence. Start out, don't go more than a paragraph though, and work on that, on reading it through smoothly, clearly, with the right intonation and the feeling, and play with that too. So reading is wonderful for that, because I was just trying to find a book. I've got 40 million of them, and I can't find one. Um, Reading is great for that because you can practice. Well, how does it sound if I inflect over here, or if I add volume here, or if I drop the pitch here or raise it over here? You can play around with that and experiment and find out what happens when you don't do it the way you've heard it in the conversation. How does that change it? And is that a good thing or a bad thing? Do I need to avoid it, or can I use it later when I need to create that certain effect? And so this is what so many people miss when they're teaching English, and when they're learning English as well, is that these details are important, not just for English, but think of your own language. If I were to ignore a lot of the rules and the ways that your language has developed, and I just dismissed a lot of them, oh, because it's close enough. Number one, how would you feel? But number two, would I be able to communicate effectively in your language? Would you understand me? Would you be insulted that I don't care enough to know and to learn? And what kind of a rapport would that set up between you and the person who says they're trying to learn your language? So really think about that. Keep coming back to that. But reading is a great way to do this. And again, videotape yourself. I suggest that, but at the very least, record yourself, your voice. Because you'll be able to, it's good. You need to also just focus on the sounds. And was I clear? Was I effective? Were the transitions smooth? Did I get the right tone? What kind of mood did I just set with my voice? Just really, really helpful. So this is the way that I approach speaking, improving my speaking skills on my own. Now, I am going to suggest that you're going to get to a point when you realize that you need help, or that you'd like to get help. You might not need it, but you might like to get some help and some feedback. So that's why I'm coming here. That's why. So, come here certainly. And then when you're ready to maybe join a conversation club or something, really consider that, because you'll be able to practice with other non-native speakers, with other students who are learning English. But the one that I've designed, that I'm gathering students for, um, it's a monthly membership. You get an hour a week. I'm holding it 3 days during the week at different times to make sure that people all over the world can have a chance to join it. Um, I'm doing 24 people in a class, to keep it I don't want things to get too big. I've been in membership clubs and different things like that, for business or what have you, and they've gotten too big, and then the students get lost, and I don't want that. My big thing, my drive, is that personal connection, getting to know you personally. That's the best way that I can help you achieve the greatest success in your English. And so I'm keeping the group small. You can join all three. The price depends on how many you join. But I do ask that if you're going to join more than one, you really make sure that you can commit to showing up, because other than that, it's unfair to be taking a spot that someone else who might really be able to commit and need to commit to it, you're taking that from them. So think about that. But really think about joining a conversation club. So the link is in the chat for that. And again, I feel as though so many of us, um, again, so many of my students have never had the opportunity to use to use what they've learned in class. The training was simply listen to the teacher and repeat what the teacher says. And it doesn't go beyond that. And you're tested, vocabulary tests. Do you know what it means? Can you say it right? And clearly, things like that. There's no opportunity to learn beyond that, to use what you've learned. And again, so many school systems around the world, when teaching English, they're missing huge chunks of information. They're not giving their students huge chunks of information. So joining a conversation club is a phenomenal return on your investment, because when you think about it, you're paying basically you- you're paying for and what you would normally pay if you came to me every single week. I would be charging you, this amount, but you're getting 3 extra hours a month for the same price as 1 week. So it's really a good return on your investment there. And, if it starts out small, it starts out small, and it's basic. It's, semi-private tutoring for that kind of for a low investment. But they're really a great idea, because using it, you have to use it. I've said many times, I was fluent in German. German was the other major that there was political science and German when I was in university. But the way life happened, I didn't get to use it. I didn't get to go into the profession that I intended. Therefore, I never got to use it, and I've lost so much of it. Um, so you have to use it to not only get better, but to retain what you've learned. So definitely. So let's look at some ways that you can um, create opportunities or find opportunities to use your English and practice that speaking. So the first thing I do is I go to the library. In America, the libraries are free. You get your library card. You can check out all sorts of materials. Um, and I talk to the librarian about the different things I'm trying to research or whatever. And they are just infinite treasure troves of information and ways that you can get what you need. They know resources for everything. So talk to them. Just the talking to them and asking the questions is great practice. But they will also tell you, oh, well, we have a book club over here on Thursday nights. Um, and they're doing a book I think you might be interested in. Or my library had a cooking class based on a new cookbook that a local resident had put out. So not only would you be reading through the cookbook, but you're also learning to cook, local food. Library, library, library. Plus, you get to meet people. Not all libraries nowadays are, you can't, squeak your chair. It used to be really strict, but now they're much more relaxed. And there's so many people you can meet in different, at your pace. So library, library, library. You can also, a lot of communities have like a community center, or their high schools will have evening classes for ceramics or cake decorating or woodworking or any number of things, and music. So you can always take a class like that, and they're usually inexpensive. Um, so if money is an issue for you, it's an inexpensive way to get into, because you'd be meeting these people the same time every week, so you can get comfortable. And therefore, when you're comfortable, you're not so stressed out about speaking, and you just have normal everyday conversations. The other thing, so in your community, there's events, all over the place. Sometimes they show movies for free on, the green, or There's concerts or things like that. You can volunteer at anything that, any place that needs volunteering at the puppies, the animal shelter or anything like that, volunteer. Um, what was the other one I had? This classes. Oh, and just asking questions. If you're in the store, if you're grocery shopping, stop and ask the produce person, can you tell me about this fruit? Or, maybe there's someone in the aisle who needs some help getting something off a shelf. You can start a conversation and just, "Oh, let me help you with that." Ask questions about the product. "Oh, is that good?" Or things like that. Think of think of questions. Ask questions. If you're shopping for clothes, ask questions about the fabric or the fit or anything. There's always opportunities in your community for to practice your speaking. And so if you're at home, you've got family, friends, neighbors, maybe you could learn. Actually, one of my students, he was it was a corporate class that I had him in, and his wife and his son were all decided to learn English together. So they would, have their respective classes, and then they would set aside time to just speak in English together. So there's all sorts of ways you can do that. If you have an interesting neighbor, um, s- just start up a conversation. It's not that difficult. It takes the courage to do it, and that's the difficult part. But if you just take a breath, and if you're solid on your sounds and you're solid on those transitions, and you've done all that other work ahead of time, the rest will just fall into place. It will. It might be a little uncomfortable for you at first, but you'll soon forget all that once you get started talking. So, and then there's also tons of opportunity at work. If your office has a cafeteria, you can sit and chat with people, or, introduce yourself to someone. "I thought I saw you in that department," or whatever it happens to be. Just introduce yourself and make new friends that way. Or you can ask your manager, talk to your boss, say, "How am I doing? Can you help me with this? Are there any opportunities within the company for me to um, get better at my English or get better at my job?" Anything like that. So there's always opportunities for us to uh, get better. So, and that actually brings me to my bonus tip. This is my number one thing to do: ask questions. People have no problem, for the most part, people have no problem if you say, "I'm really trying to learn my English. I'm not sure what this means. Can you help me?" Or if you're in the middle of a conversation and you think you didn't say it right, you can just say, "Oh, was that right? Did I say that right? Is that the right word to use?" We as Americans, speaking is we just like to be direct, and although we don't always deal directly in some situations, um, we actually like it better when, instead of being tentative, just ask the question, deal with it. There it is, standing in the room, this big elephant that nobody wants to talk about, and that might be your where you are in your language learning process. But if you can just say, "I just don't know if I learned that right. Is that right?" Ask it, ask it, ask it. Okay. I do have to go. Clearly, I could talk a lot longer on this subject, but again, I know what it's like. You can't always, you might not be able to fit lessons in all the time, and so you might have to do it on your own, or you might need to try it on your own first. So this is the way, that this is what I teach my own students. This is how I learn myself, and it has never failed me. So let me know in the comments how it worked for you. Let me know some of the things you've done, to practice. What kinds of questions did you ask? What was a moment that you're most proud of when you got the courage and you introduced yourself, or you joined an event or a class or whatever? Tell me all about it, and ask the questions in the comments because I will answer them. All right? Okay, so we will see you next week, and yeah, I hope you have a super week. All right, bye-bye.